This girl spent over $250 in Disney's Magic Kingdom riding 2 rides, and she loved every minute of it.
Take it easy. Of course, we're talking about the Keys to the Kingdom tour, which you need a ticket and a pass to go on the Keys to the Kingdom tour. But according to Tara, she loved every single minute of it.
She basically spent over $120 on top of the park ticket to walk around for 5 hours and only get on 2 rides. So most people must think she's crazy. I actually haven't done this because of that reason. It is pricey.
Right, especially if you have kids, right? If it's just you and I going, or if you're just a single adult and you go by yourself, yeah, it's not that bad. But when you throw 3, 4, 5 people into the mix and you have to have a park ticket plus $120 on top of that, it gets quite pricey. But I was doing some research and I found this article, and she says she enjoyed every second of it and it was money well spent.
It was 5 hours of a tour. She was able to do all this. She did the Disney's Keys to the Kingdom tour.
And she got to only ride 2 rides, but she says she was ushered to the front of the lines for those 2 rides. And she says she has some Disney secrets. Like, she was very well-versed in Disney. And even being well-versed in Disney, she still learned things about the history or about the parks that she didn't even know.
The Keys to the Kingdom tour is held each morning at Magic Kingdom, staggered times between 8 a.m. and 9:30. The price is around $114 per person plus tax. And then each tour holds about 20 guests, which isn't bad if you're not really into being around a lot of people.
You know, I always see these people in the parks. Not always, but I've seen a few of these groups in the parks. They're the groups that you see that there's one cast member who's talking, and everybody else has headsets. It kind of reminds me of like the UN when they're all speaking different languages and they have the headsets on so they can understand what language, like it gets translated into their country's language. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of that.
Well, non-English speaking groups will sometimes bring their own interpreter.
I know, that's great. That's what I mean. Like, so you can, and you get to hear what they're saying without having them to yell and interrupt everybody else's experience.
So this particular tour is for guests that have to be 16 years or older. So that's interesting because I think it goes into places where maybe takes away from that magic from if you're a younger child.
I don't know if it's because of that. I think... Well, yeah, maybe that is it. Maybe because you get to go to she went to the underground tunnels and saw kind of the behind the scenes a little bit, and that may wreck the magic. But I really think that if you think about what it is, it's a walking tour that adults would be interested in because you learn things, and kids probably would be so disinterested or seeing attractions that they would just rather go on than sit there and listen to someone talking about what they could go on.
Right, or like what the windows are about or whatever, depending on their age group, especially in the heat, right?
If I'm a kid and you tell me, okay, we're going to go hear the history of Peter Pan, the kid's probably like, you know what? I would rather just ride Peter Pan.
Yeah, and you can throw in the educational portion of it to them without having them realize it by just riding the ride. So these tours are definitely geared to more adults or kids that are in that age range where they do or can be willing to not ride an attraction for a long extended period of time and do a lot of walking, and it's really hot, and it's some of it may be dry. As far as, for an example, this article says that they were talked about how forced perspective and how deep the water is on the Jungle Cruise,
which I'm sure the kids would not care one second about.
They would want to swim in the waters of the jungle.
Or go on the Jungle Cruise.
Exactly.
Or go get an ice cream or Starbucks or something like that. The reason I like this article is it gives a really good in-depth, not necessarily in-depth, but it gives you a good overview of what the tour is, because you can go on the Disney website or you can ask somebody who's been on the tour, but this is like, all right, this is what you're going to do when you go on the tour.
Sure.
So it says the tour started out in Tony's Town Square Theater, which is just inside the Magic Kingdom entrance. They got a badge, they had to check in, and they got a headset as part of the tour.
First of all, the key, pretty epic. Just got to say that.
The key?
Yeah, key design.
I like it.
It's unlocking the magic.
Unlocking the magic. That's what we're doing here. Unlocking the magic tour.
Yeah.
Once you had checked in, our tour guide, Lynn, went over the basics of what would be involved. Lots of walking and standing, plenty of water and bathroom breaks, and no photos or videos. That's interesting. Why is there no photos or videos?
Well, I thought a lot about this, and I do know that there's some people that I've heard some recording, so I do think there are some people that try to sneak it, but it's mainly because if they probably did this on a recording, they wouldn't need the admission ticket being so high. So you could just find the recording and do it yourself.
I guess that's true.
I mean, ultimately, that's what Unlocking the Magic podcast, our regular podcast that we do, kind of goes into that. So you can kind of do your own walking tour, I guess. If you really wanted to, like, unlock each attraction. There are a few, especially in Magic Kingdom, that we've done. But they have to justify the price.
Well, according to this article and what this tour really is, I'm kind of debating on, like, I feel like we know all of this. They're telling you why the bricks are there because they're rolling out the red carpet. They could describe the windows and the forced perspective and the names on the windows and why they're significant. But obviously, Walter E. Disney, you should know whose name that is and why it's significant if you're going on this tour, right?
Well, yes. And I think, but maybe it gives you a better idea being on the ground and actually having carved out that time to go through all this versus when you're there on vacation. And even if you're trying to see everything that you want to see, you might feel awkward because you're just doing it on
I guess that's true.
You know, so you're in a group, it's legit. They stop legitimately.
This also says Walt Disney's name is painted above the Plaza ice cream parlor at the end of Main Street, USA. This is not only because he is the director, in quotation marks, of the show, and the director's name historically came last in the film credits, but also because he loved vanilla ice cream.
Vanilla.
He was a very basic man, wasn't he?
He loved his vanilla ice cream, his chili, very simple palate.
Yeah, chili with beans and crackers and vanilla ice cream. You can't get much more simple than that. But listen.
Probably because it was more, maybe back then, like certain basic flavors, like chili and beans is super inexpensive. And I know that was the reason why he ate a lot of that, because it was cheap.
Well, you know what else? It's probably easy, right? Like a lot of these guys that you hear of that are these, or gals that have these big tech companies, they try to eliminate every decision that they possibly can so they can focus on the company. And Walt seemed like one of those people. So if he could just say, you know what? I don't want to make a decision about lunch or ice cream. Just give me vanilla and beans and I'm good to go.
True.
I can focus all of my energy on building the greatest park and company in the world.
That's a good point.
Not surprisingly, we all... oh, wait, hold on a second. Let me go back to this part.
Skipping over a bunch.
We made our way through Adventureland to the Jungle Cruise where the guide shared interesting tidbits about the ride. Like how Walt wanted to use real animals, but was luckily advised against it. That is a point. He did want to originally have live animals in the Jungle Cruise.
So if you like listening to podcasts, go on to our Unlocking the Magic podcast on Stitcher or iTunes, and we did a whole Unlocking Jungle Cruise that talks about that.
And
yes,
he wanted live birds in the tiki room as well, if you're listening to this and you weren't sure about that. He wanted it to be a restaurant where there would be live birds.
Nice.
But that would be awkward because they'd be pooping all over the place.
It'd be a little weird.
The ride relevations, it's a hard word for me to say, continued as we walked past Pirates of the Caribbean and Splash Mountain, and then things became really interesting. Our guide took us through the door marked cast members only, and we were suddenly in a backstage area behind Splash Mountain. I felt like we were sneaking around behind Wizard of Oz's curtain, which would have been more than enough for me. Then our guide says she had a surprise for us. We walked right through past a huge warehouse that stages the Festival of Fantasy Parade floats, just in time to see preparing the floats for a noon parade. Based on what I learned and what I know, my own driving skills, I would never be able to be a pilot on one of those parade floats. So she got to see behind the scenes of the parade floats. Was that interesting?
Yeah.
You'd want to see that?
I think a little bit. I think anything's interesting when you're in Disney.
I think it would be more interesting if you got to ride one of the parade floats.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what I would want to do.
Yeah, do something a little extra.
After lunch, they moved on to Liberty Square, which is one of your favorite places to be.
Definitely. Well, yeah. I don't know if it's Liberty Square is one of my favorites, but Haunted Mansion is one of my favorite areas.
I wonder, did they get to go in behind the scenes of the Haunted Mansion here?
Well, it sounds like they had the opportunity to kind of go over it, but it doesn't necessarily say they went through into the Haunted Mansion. So the best part, I think, of the tour that she talks about is the underground tunnels.
Yeah, what do they call it? The Utilidor.
Yeah, I think everyone's sort of fascinated with that. I don't know how I feel about actually seeing them, to be honest. I know I'm at a point where I understand, I'm not a young kid, so I get that part of the reality of having these tunnels underground, but I don't know if I'm ready to see them. I think I'm still waiting.
Are you really?
Opportune moment.
I think it would be cool. It says one of the biggest reasons people take this tour is for the Utilidor.
I know. That's why this tour is particularly popular, is for that reason. Maybe I'm just not ready.
It says she saw 83,000 pounds of trash per day whisking through the tubes, walked past costumed cast members on their way to meet and greets, with guests and saw walls lined with photos of memorabilia that tied back to everything we had learned about the history and creation of the park.
It is cool that there's no photos allowed, again, obviously for a lot of reasons why Disney does it, but I also think it makes it way more exclusive. It makes it so it's something that you'll never really see unless you take the tour. So I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think this is a really good tour. I think if you are an adult or an older kid who's interested in the parks and the history, this would be really fascinating to do.
So all in all, was it worth it? What do you think as far as what you've read so far? I mean, we know a lot about this tour, even though we've never done it on the ground. We've seen a lot of people take this tour. We've had a lot of feedback of people taking on this tour. What do you think?
So it's $120. So if you think about it, you get to still stay at the park afterwards, right? It's 5
Sure.
hours, so you can hang out at the park after. So take your park ticket out of it. If you said, pay me $120, and I'll spend 5 hours with you teaching you the ins and outs and secrets of Disney's Magic Kingdom, I would be like, I'm in.
Okay.
I don't know if I would be able to take 5 people, but once your kids are 16 plus, guess what?
They're on their own.
They pay for themselves. So all I got to do is pay for me. I'm totally in on this. I think it would be very interesting to I would want to go just for the Utilidor. That would be so cool to see.
Okay, but if you're going, you're probably taking me with you, and that's a hefty price. You have to include your park ticket. So I know you're trying to say, put the park ticket aside because you're going to be there, probably going to the park anyway. Does take away a significant part of the day. So, like, are you going to be sad that you didn't get to ride, for an example, Space Mountain a couple times during that one visit?
I mean, at this point in my Disney career, I wouldn't be sad. If I was a person who only have been to Disney a couple times, I may not do this.
Okay.
Because of what you said. But at this point in my life, when I've been many, 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 many times, this is something that's more interesting to me than riding Space Mountain again.
See, I can't decide.
Maybe I'll surprise you with a ticket and we'll go.
Okay.
But let us know. Question of the show. Have you ever been on the Keys to the Kingdom tour? And if so, scale of 1 to 10. What did you think of the tour? It can't be a 7, though.
Why
7's out of the equation. Because 7s are wafflers. It's like you don't want to say it's good, but you don't want to say it's bad. It's got to be a 6 or an 8.
Okay.
No 7s allowed. 1 through 10. What did you think of the Keys to the Kingdom tour and Magic Kingdom if you've ever been on? And if you haven't, would you want to go and pay the extra money? Love to hear from you in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like this video, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye, everybody.